So we could talk about NVIDIA probably for the rest of the hour, but we are talking about software and AI, and there are other companies that also did things with AI and software this week. One that comes up to mind is ServiceNow, which is known for doing their biannual releases, has come out with its latest release. And in tradition with naming each version after a global city, this one is Washington, D.C. So we are up to W now. They're starting to run out of the alphabet, so we'll see what happens after that. But it was interesting to see, of course, that their version was put AI front and center. In fact, it's about all that you can see inside this new version. That a bunch of these AI related features, and it's hard to ignore that because ServiceNow is now a core part of basically every Fortune 500 IT environment in some way, shape, or form. So I'm not going to say that every new version is groundbreaking, but this one had a few few interesting, at least tweaks that should be considered. What do you think?
Well, so I don't know if I should admit this, but it was the very first thing I saw when I saw the announcement about Washington D.C. was exactly that. It's like, wow, what are they going to do when they get to Z? First of all, what are they going to be particularly X and Z cities, and then what are they going to do 4 releases from now when they're out of the alphabet? I mean, are they just going to start over? I don't know. I mean, it's kind of hilarious that they picked this
Mhm.
thing that it has become cemented. But yeah, so to me, the big news about this release was sort of the non-release nature of it. There was not a whole lot in it. I mean, the Now Assist for ITOM is interesting, and I think this is something that we've all seen coming. It was the one of the first things that I know when Gen AI started getting real traction. It was the first place my mind went. It's like, well, there's nothing that isn't made for this than going through alerts and giving me in plain English, hey, give me the Star Trek computer. This you have a problem
Right.
here. It's like so I think in that regard it's good, and I don't want to minimize it. Um, but it wasn't, there's nothing particularly, in fairness, I haven't seen a demo of it, so maybe it's more groundbreaking when you actually see it. But at least from reading about it, I didn't go, oh my gosh, wow, that is shocking. What I did find interesting, and we sort of alluded to this a minute ago, is that as part of this, they announced a partnership with, or an extension of their partnership with NVIDIA. They announced that they will be adopting the NIMS, and building on top of that. And what I think, when I read through all of that, the big takeaway was that we're in this very interesting era. We've talked a little bit about it in the past, about this shift away from what really I think has been the defining factor for Silicon Valley and for the tech industry for the last 20, 25 years, and the scrappy startup model, right? Where
Mhm.
you got VC funding, and the innovation was happening in these small companies. That the big companies would spin off some, their smartest people would run off, go get funding, and start this really innovative company that would then sort of drive the market forward. And what I think is really interesting, and I'm not saying that's dead, but
Mhm.
if I look at the space and look at ServiceNow's would-be competitors, the people that are typically doing 30, 50, 100 million in revenue and trying to compete with them in some way, they can't compete here. They cannot form a partnership with NVIDIA, not of anything that's meaningful. They're not going to have the wherewithal to go down this road. And as AI and as NVIDIA continue to drive the market, it's going to make it harder and harder, if I'm a CIO, to look at these smaller companies and say, how are they going to keep pace?
Mhm.
And so I think that was for me, the big aha. And we have a couple other pieces to talk about. I think are kind of bringing that point home. But that was my big takeaway. It wasn't so much the release itself as much as what it signals as to where this road is leading.
Yeah, I think of Now Assist. The claim is around bringing IT jargon to standard business level language, and not so long ago, that would have been a standalone startup. Some company would have said, "We just raised $12 million Series A to translate IT into business," and everybody would have been all excited about it. Nowadays, you have to be the $5 billion or whatever ServiceNow's annual revenue is, to be able to put out something like that and have it actually make a difference in the IT world. Because You might be a 10 or 15 million-dollar startup that tries to do this, but you will get swallowed up by ServiceNow for this specific use case, and for a lot of these generative AI related use cases.